Well, good morning, everyone. This is Gary Boomer, and today I'm joined with Arianna Campbell, one of our newest shareholders at Boomer Consulting. And I think she's got a great story to tell. I think it's very engaging, interesting, and motivational. So, Arianna, tell us how you came to Boomer Consulting in Manhattan, Kansas to get started.
Yes, I'd be happy to share about that, Gary. So before before I started at Boomer Consulting, me and my husband were living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was in my previous career in advertising, really focused on the client service side of things. So when my husband got a job transfer, we actually moved out to Manhattan, Kansas. It's funny though, at the time when he told us that told me about the move, he just told me that we were moving to Manhattan. And then he waited like a day or two to actually add the Kansas part to it. I had no idea that Manhattan, Kansas had even existed. So we moved out to Manhattan and actually transitioned out of my job in advertising, and living in Manhattan decided that I wanted to find a place to work locally. And so I was searching through different job opportunities and came across Boomer Consulting's website. And I was really interested in what Boomer Consulting did for clients all around making an impact on the CPA profession. And it sounded like something really interesting. So I applied.
Well, I think our audience should take one thing out of that for sure, that you started with a degree in marketing, not in accounting, and we'll
Yeah.
continue with the story, and we're going to see how you have experienced all five pillars at Boomer Consulting, and we'll explain the five pillars. But over those first 3 years, what did you start? Because your job today is uh, nothing like it was when you started.
No. So when I started, I was actually answering the phones. I was in a receptionist role and was actually excited to be able to do that. It was a good change of pace from what I had previously been doing. The team was great to work with, but started off sitting at the front desk, answering the phones and being able to make sure that the different team members had what they needed to be able to take care of clients.
So you really learned the clients as well as what we did as a company. And what we did when you started certainly is not nearly as broad-based as what we're doing today. And the five pillars that I mentioned, just so everyone understands, leadership, technology, talent, processes, and finally growth. So you had the one that we were kind of missing, the growth part, as education, but another one that we were missing was the process part. And you might tell how you became a black belt and how that service is transformed into convergence with technology today.
Yeah, well, I guess I would even go back to the transition from when I first started at Boomer and kind of some of the fundamentals, because I think that those were some of the most important parts. So focusing on unique abilities is what really made the different transitions possible. And, when you think about really aligning talent within firms, looking at just not where have people always worked, but where are their best unique abilities, especially as opportunities are expanding for a variety of roles within the firm. And that's something when I started at Boomer that was huge, was knowing what your unique abilities were and then finding how you could move more and more towards roles where you were working in your unique ability. Now, that doesn't mean that you get to do your favorite things all of the time. But you do, the comment was always that you should aim to spend at least 80% of your time working in your unique abilities. And I think that that's what really provided a lot of the transition. So I started off with answering the phone, then I moved to more of an administrative executive assistant role. And then I spent 4 years as a project manager. And I think that's where a lot of the process pieces came in. But also during my time as a project manager, I was able to work part-time for 4 years. If you remember, Gary, I I had the girls back in 2010. And at that time, I decided that it would be best to work part time. So I worked in the mornings and then was with the girls in the afternoon. And at that time, I was working remotely because we had moved from another transition with my husband's job from Manhattan, Kansas to North Carolina. And so within my career at Boomer, to have had the opportunity to have that flexibility and to have it be, a long-term arrangement was huge. So working as a project manager, working part-time, also taking care of my daughters really required a lot of process to keep all of that together, and really discovered a passion for process. So once I had the opportunity, or the opportunity presented itself at Boomer, to really take a more process focus through helping firms create capacity to focus on the things that matter. It all circles back around to unique abilities, and found that that would be a good fit and a place for me to transition into and to be able to help clients in that way. So I'll pause for any comments on that from you, Gary, and then I can talk about the black belt part.
Well, I'll just ask you to remind our listeners that number one, you said girls, not girls.
Yes.
So she had twins. And then tell us about Wesley. He kind of came along there too.
So yes, I had the girls and worked part-time for the 4 years, came back and started working full-time. And then we had our son. And, I think some people thought maybe it would be another, 4 years of working part-time. And I did consider that, but it was third child syndrome at that point. It was like, Wesley's good. I'm ready to come back. His sisters can help to take care of them. Therefore, they can help with that, right? But I did transition faster back into working after I had Wesley, and I was able to, from there, went straight into consulting. So when he was about a year old, that's when I started the consulting and the traveling and really focusing on the process side of things.
Well, I can remember that day just like it was yesterday, and talking with Jim and saying, "Is she real? Does she really want to do that?" I said, "That's the best news I've had for a long time." And so you got into the Lean Six Sigma, um, and then along comes this idea that really lean was designed to utilize technology to be able to execute on what a lean project really looked like. And you might talk about how you have taken it further now and incorporated lean and technology into your consulting.
Well, that's been one of the best parts, is being able to evolve not only through different roles as I've been at Boomer. And I think, when we're thinking about the opportunities that we're offering people within our firms, you need to allow them to be able to grow into different roles, but also to grow within their roles. So being able to innovate within the roles and responsibilities that they have, and to allow that to happen, is huge. So really based on feedback from clients, and really understanding, again, the impacts of technology, and understanding that process can't just happen in a silo, that you really do need to be looking at the other areas, the other 5 pillars. So you need to make sure that you're looking at talent and growth and leadership, but obviously technology, because you can't talk about one without the other. And it became evident that efficiency was one part of process, and it's an important part of process. But the more important and really the bigger opportunity is talking about what are you actually going to do, and being strategic with your plans for what you're going to do with the capacity that you find from creating those efficiencies. So I love being able to go in and help firms create efficiency. I love to see the metrics change, and increases in realization and decreases in hours worked and all of those great things. But it's really important to understand from the beginning, what are you actually going to do with the capacity? Because if you haven't defined that, then you're going to keep on doing the same as what you've always done, or worse yet, that capacity is just going to slip through your fingers. And when it does come to creating those efficiencies, technology is a huge part of that. So it's been great being able to partner with the other consultants at Boomer, especially with Amanda Wilkie, and really help clients with the integration of the technology and the process, because that's what helps them move even faster to create that capacity.
Well, I just spent the week with Abundance 360, and speakers from Amazon, Salesforce, all really said this is the direction that they're going, and that lean has come back in its importance in manufacturing in the US, but also in professional services. And the technology is really driving that. I'd like to have you continue on this journey a little bit, and let's touch on the leadership role that you have played and how you were part of the P3 leadership program, as well as now developing the certified consultants program.
So I love process, and I mention all the time that I am a process nerd, but it's just as important to focus on people. And I love that aspect as well, because if we aren't supporting and growing and developing our people, then obviously our processes aren't going to be effective. It's to a certain degree, it doesn't even matter. So focusing on our people is so important. So for about the past 6 or 7 years, I had the honor of facilitating the P3 leadership program and really helping to grow the core success skills for professionals within firms. And when you do that, you make them better equipped to really work within their best and highest use within their processes. So we need to make sure that we can lead well and that we can lead effectively, that we have those skills that we need to really be able to manage yourself, to be able to manage your clients and your teams, to make sure that you're able to effectively manage the firm. So that's a lot of what we cover in P3. But then we also identified that there's a need to actually learn how to consult. I think a misconception is just if you've been there for a long time, or if you just have the knack, that you can be a consultant. But it's also a skill that can be learned and continually refined. So worked with both Sandra Wiley and John Hubbard to build out the curriculum for the certified consultant program, which really pulls from the expertise from all the consultants in all 5 of the pillars to really give firm professionals the tools, the resources, but most importantly, the confidence and the roadmap to take to be able to be consultants. And it's not just theory. The certified consultant program actually also requires completing a project within the first about 6-ish months, so that you're really putting those skills to use, consulting with your clients and generating, in a lot of cases, new revenue by going through that program. So the people part of it, because obviously there's a lot of process involved in that, but being able to bring the people and the process together to help firms to be successful that's huge. And it's really rewarding.
Well, I think you have lived it. You're a great example for not only our firm, but the accounting firms out there. And I will be honest with the people, 2 of the things that you mentioned, I didn't have when I came out of a CPA firm as a partner. One was the knowledge of unique ability. I knew that people had different abilities, but until I went through the Colby program with Kathy Colby and Dan Sullivan's strategic coach, I didn't really understand the differences and how to build a team. And it would have been useful for me communicating with partners to know that. But then the other thing that I didn't know, but I thought I could do because I had experienced, as you said, was the consulting. And I remember reading a couple of books on consulting and how different the mindset. And you have to remember, this is over 20 years ago. So now it's pretty popular to have coaches. And in fact, teams have coaches. Why don't accounting firms, leadership teams have coaches? And yeah, you can each have a coach, but if you don't align and pull towards the same value system, then it's very, very difficult. Well, talk a little bit about what you see as the vision for yourself and for the profession going forward, because I see the excitement in your eyes.
Yeah, so it's a really exciting time in the profession right now. There's so much opportunity out there. Clients need their CPAs more than they ever had before, and not just their CPAs, but the entire breadth of the CPA firm. Because, as we mentioned earlier, there are going to be different roles that aren't necessarily just the CPA designation that are going to be increasingly important within firms. And so it's a really exciting time of, everything just kind of coming together at once with the transitions that we've seen, even though it's been, when we look back over the past year, it's been challenging, but it's really forced the acceleration of the technology, of the client connections, of really moving up the continuum of value and being able to offer more value to your clients. And so when I think about the future of the profession, the ability to be able to help firms really find the capacity to focus on what matters is exciting to me, because many times that's where they feel like they're most stuck. And for me to be able to do that and know the impact that it makes, to be able to find what you thought you were lacking, that feeling of I just don't have the capacity to do those things and to focus on the things that I know that I should be, is huge. And knowing that it's not just process. That's why I'm so glad for, the team at Boomer Consulting, knowing that it's not just about me and that it's not just about process. It's about really relying on all five of the pillars. You've got to be focused on process, but you also have to focus on technology. You have to focus on talent. You have to focus on leadership and growth. And those pieces all work together to help really move firms forward faster. And to just be able to be a part of that along with the talent development is just, it's huge. And for me, that's really exciting, because I know that if we can make an impact with firms, that they can make an impact with their clients, and it just has a ripple effect that continues to go from there. So again, when I think about the future, it's really bright, but it's all about serving clients and helping them to focus on the things that matter.
Well, don't you see that clients' problems are very similar to the problems that we experience as a small business? And I think it would be valuable to our office or our audience to kind of hear how you had to pivot, how our company had to pivot, you being a consultant, used to being on the road, and then how did you deliver higher value services in a virtual world? And what other positions did we need to really make that happen? Because I don't see us any different than all of the firms out there today.
I agree with that, Gary. And it's interesting because we've been remote for, I don't even know how many years now. And, that's a great part of the story as well, is being able to, I think I've moved maybe 4 times since I started at Boomer. And so being able to be virtual and being able to be connected is so important. But we really learned that on an even bigger level over the past year. And when you think about service delivery and not being able to get on a plane and meet face to face, it changes everything. And it did for us, even though we had that foundation of already being virtual. We were already delivering a small percentage of our services virtually, but we had to rethink things and realize that you just can't take what you do on site and then just do that virtually. You really have to be thinking about the client experience first and foremost. And I would really encourage firms to not just think about it on how can they best do things from an internal side of things. It should really be starting with focusing on the client experience. So looking at using different technology, looking at how we were using Zoom differently to help the clients be able to use things like breakout rooms, to be able to share ideas in smaller groups, to be able to have the opportunity to have tools, to be able to visually see and walk through the engagements that we were doing. But for us, it did take having to change, using Verbello, which was a virtual reality platform that we used for our largest conference of the year last year. And it does take some confidence to be able to do that, and also knowing that there's going to be a bit of trial and error. But in all of that, really making sure that you have the right people in the right roles. So we saw our project managers really come to the forefront. We learned that we were depending on each other as consultants and really working more as a team, and we were learning from each other as we were delivering virtually. Um, and our technology team members really became frontline as well in helping with things, business development, and the way that they were communicating the value to clients and helping them to see that they really could have a successful experience virtually. And firms need to be doing the same thing with their clients, because we've discovered a whole new opportunity. Yes, we'll get back together in person. That's going to happen. On-site is never going away. But there are going to be clients who would prefer to meet virtually. And heck, that creates a lot of opportunity. You can break down geographical barriers. So we need to challenge ourselves and have that confidence to explore how we can think beyond where we are and how we can always be doing things differently. Over the past year, it was a pandemic and virtual. We need to be thinking about what's it going to be next year.
Well, I think that's a great summary. You gave away a lot of secret sauce there. I just hope our listeners will listen up of how important project managers are and how important virtual is going to be in the future. Now, I know most of our listeners think of Zoom as a communications platform because that's where it really started. But I think if you switch your mindset to it's more a transportation model, and then you can use tools within that, and just talk about how much you've grown and learned this past year because you weren't on airplanes all the time, and how better your life has been and your balance with your family.
This year, well, I should say, the past year, it was one of my best years that I've had, both personally and professionally. It was also one of the most challenging. But I went from being on the plane all the time, week after week, to not being on a plane at all. And the time that that provided to be able to be with my family and be home for dinner every night was huge. To be here for different milestones with our children, that was huge too. But also the just the time. Well, first of all, the learning that I was forced to do. When you have to, change gears, you have to get better. And that was one part of it, but also just time that wasn't spent in transportation to really work on learning and training and knowledge transfer. That was huge too. But I have to say, quite frankly, the family part was the best part of it over the past year. And I don't think that we'll be on planes as much as we were before. We'll obviously still get back to travel at some point here, but it is good to know that we'll be able to pull forward some of those lessons learned from virtual delivery, and really still be able to help clients, but not have to necessarily travel to do it, which just creates a better balance when it comes to work and life.
Well, Arianna, this has been great. I know it would be very easy to have this conversation and people would learn a lot from what you've done at Boomer Consulting. And I'm just very grateful that you decided to join our company. And I think one of the things that I've learned over the years, if you can find great people and determine what they're passionate about and provide them access to knowledge and the time to acquire that knowledge and experience. And the other big thing is you don't have to be a CPA. In fact, today, I think in most CPA firms, the bulk of the people they're hiring may not have a degree in accounting.
Yeah.
But it complements their team, the diversity of skills helps them with servicing their clients. So this has been a great discussion this morning. As always, I enjoy visiting with you and wish we had more time. But you can certainly contact Arianna. It's arianna.campbell@boomer.com if you have any further questions. And thank you again, Arianna, for a great interview this morning.
Thank you, Gary. It was great talking to you.